Hey guys, for those of you that don't know us already, I'm Nick.
And I'm Kelly. This is Arthur. So we've gotten a lot of questions lately about our background and how we started cruising. We have decided to put this video together for y'all.
It just kind of starts, where, a little bit of background on us, how I got the boat, how we met, how we started cruising, and it's an interesting little story, I think.
Yeah.
Enjoy the video. Thanks, guys.
Every once in a while, you have to stop. Stop to think, to understand, to remember, but more importantly, stop to appreciate what you've been through and how far you've come. Then stop and do it again once you get to where you're going.
I grew up in Tampa, Florida. My childhood mostly consisted of dance. So I started dancing at the age of 3, and pretty soon I knew that it was a passion of mine. Around, I'd say 8 years old is when I really started to focus on ballet. Even though I did every other style, tap, jazz, acrobatics, competitive dance, I always knew I wanted to become a ballerina. I took a lot of ballet classes. Even at that young age of 8, I was taking at least 5 ballet classes a week. Right about high school is when I got really serious. I was dancing pretty much 7 days a week. I started teaching at a very young age. I was only 14. I had very supportive parents. My mom drove my sister and I all over creation. My dad, coming from a sports background, he would recognize technique and he would help us and correct us. And he knew all the terminology to this day. He could point out what they need to do to fix their pirouette. I started dancing professionally at 16. I danced as a guest artist with a ballet company in Kyoto, Japan. I danced in Miami for a couple years, and then I got a job in Hawaii. I was rehearsing with my partner, and freak accident, he got blinded by a light, and unfortunately I fell. Turns out I broke my back. I cracked my L5 vertebrae. I have herniated discs along with bulging discs. That pretty much put an end to my professional career. My body just couldn't take it anymore. So I had a kind of passion for fashion. I got my bachelor's in fashion design and marketing. I was a PR intern for BCBG, so I did a design internship for Tula as well. And so I stayed in New York for a while. I worked there. I was in a 1-bedroom apartment with 4 roommates and bunk beds. It was just not what I wanted to do in my later 20s.
I grew up in a suburban town on the outskirts of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My childhood really consisted mainly of sports. Really played a lot of soccer and hockey. Had a pretty awesome neighborhood, a lot of kids running around. We didn't have everything we wanted growing up, but we definitely had everything that we needed. I ended up applying to University of Minnesota, Duluth. A mechanical engineer was my focus, but the school I applied to had an industrial engineering degree, so I figured that's close enough. The head of our department went over to Sweden, 2 years of teaching over there. And so when he came back, he was really pushing for that, trying to get students over there in the exchange program. I said, wow, that sounds awesome. I wish I could do something like that. And he says, well, why can't you? I realized at that moment I didn't have a good answer for him. That's the moment I realized, now I have to go. It was probably the most significant, life-changing experience in my life. Partly because that was the first flight I've ever taken in my life. I'd never flown on a commercial airline until I was 21. I really wanted to do a lot more traveling, but kind of got sucked into the corporate way of life, I suppose. And I started working with a guy named Ross Gerber. And Ross and I became good friends over the course of that project. He's telling me this story about how his friend Alex called him up and said, hey man, come help me sail this boat.
He gave me a call one day and he's like, hey Gerber, I need you to come down to Florida and we're gonna go sail. Like, someone needs to teach me. And I was like, I barely know how to sail, man. Like, I've sailed with my dad a little bit, but I haven't sailed that much. He had told me he took a captain's course, and it turns out he took like a celestial navigation like booze cruise, which had nothing to do with, he had no idea how to sail.
His friend kept going and sailing around the world. There's actually a documentary about it. It's called Chasing Bubbles, and I recommend everybody watch that. Anyone interested in sailing. This guy's story is fascinating, and he's such a charismatic guy. I was thinking about this experience that he was going through, and just this idea of traveling by boat. And you travel to new places, but you you sleep in your own bed, and you have your own kind of space wherever you are. And I had the same kind of feeling as when I was considering studying abroad in Sweden. It was that I wish I could do something like that. And then I thought about it. That's when I started to consume everything online about sailing and cruising and traveling. And I just, like, every forum, blog, YouTube, there wasn't any YouTube channels, sailing channels at all back then. And there's one interview. This guy was just living on his boat. He was a web developer. He was working basically completely remote. And then that's when the light bulb went off in my head. I was like, wow, I mean, I could do this. And that's when it clicked, and that's when I knew I was moving forward. Like, there was no turning back after that. I mean, I was ready to buy a boat. And my girlfriend at the time, she suggested that we maybe go spend some time on a sailboat, since neither of us ever had. And I was like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. And we did four days on the boat, and it was just absolutely amazing. The weather was perfect, everything was amazing. They cooked all the meals for us. We just had the best time ever, and I was hooked. And it was like, yep, absolutely.
Sunsets about to happen.
My sister and I, during this whole time, we had a dance studio together for about 12 years. Even though I couldn't dance professionally anymore, every year I would perform. I took dance classes, I stayed in shape, and even though I couldn't do ballet, I did contemporary modern dance. So I would do solos. My sister and I would dance. As well as my dance partner, Steve, and I. Teaching is so rewarding. I mean, I have watched these little kids grow up and to become adults. You know, they start with me when they're 3 years old, and now they're in their 20s. It's crazy to think. And that's definitely something that I'll miss on our sailing trip, is teaching my kids that I basically grew up with. Running a dance studio, it's hard work, but you have some downtime. So I'm like, okay, I need to do something. I can't just not work like 14 hours a day like I usually do. So I got an office job. I did that for about 7 years.
So I started shopping for boats online, and it was at this point that I realized I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't really know what I was looking for other than something that looked big and comfortable. We flew down and a little boat shopping mission. Satori was down in Sarasota and right where we wanted to be. We came down, did the survey. She needed a lot of work. At one point, all the paperwork gets signed and the deal's done, and you know, it's a lot like buying a house, really. Now I have a boat all the way on the other side of the country, sitting in a slip, just floating and waiting for me. We come down, we move on, and it's just a massive cleaning effort. It's more cleaning than anything else. It was just project after project from that point on. We didn't move the boat because didn't know how to sail it, didn't know how to move it. I was scared to move it in the docks around all those other boats. And eventually just slowly started to get more comfortable. Went out with some other people at the marina. Then we started going out on our own on nice calm days. Eventually you get caught in a little bit of wind and you realize, oh, that's not so bad. And that's really how you start to expand your experience. You get caught in some shit you don't expect. And then you realize, oh, that's not so bad. I can handle that. The boat can handle that. So the relationship I had, she was only on board for about 6 months. We ended up breaking up, but I stayed on the boat and moved it here to St. Pete. And that kind of put a halt on a lot of my sailing and cruising plans, just because now I didn't know what I was going to do. Am I going to do this completely alone? And that's when...
and then I met Nick, and...
a friend I had met set me up with Kelly. I get a Facebook message one day. Hey, my friend is new to town and she's really looking to, she's single and looking to meet some people. I thought you guys would hit it off. I was like, all right, great. She definitely wasn't new to town. I don't know why she said that. Maybe because, I don't know. It didn't matter to me. I started creeping on her Facebook page. I was like, oh, dang, this girl's cute. And we went out, we had a great time. Beautiful girl. And we just really had a great time together. I told Kelly from the get-go that, my plans were to go and eventually take off and go sailing, and, at least for 6 months to a year.
He kind of told me his goals and his plans. That's something that people just talk about. You don't really see them do, especially as young as he is. When you hear about that, it's mostly people that are retired or about to retire. So I was super supportive. I didn't really expect to go with him, at all. I was just happy that he was doing it. But as, time went on, I started sailing more, really enjoyed it. Probably the turning point was the first big trip I did with him. He went to Key West for about 3 weeks last year.
The moment I knew for sure was a trip down to Key West that Kelly... She wasn't able to do the whole trip, but she was able to go a couple days on the way down.
I had a performance in Michigan with my dance partner, so I was already committed to that. So I did do the first part of the trip for about 4 days. We sailed from St. Pete to Fort Myers Beach. It took us 2 days to get there, and then we hung out a little bit in Fort Myers. That was so fun. I had never been on a sailboat for that long. I had sailed in my younger 20s, and Nick and I did a few, day sails or sunset sails, but that was the first time that I was actually on the boat for that long, and I loved it. We had so much fun. We had a little drama. We ran out of gas. However, we didn't really run out of gas. It was just a gauge problem. We just made the best of it, and we had caught some fresh fish that day. So we made a little surf and turf meal while we waited. It was the best time ever. I mean, we had so much fun. We went dancing in Fort Myers Beach, had a blast. So right there is when I kind of realized, oh my gosh, this is something that I really have a passion for as well. And I had been kind of looking for something since my professional career had ended. And so I connected with sailing right away.
I could just tell she was just so comfortable on a long trip like that. It just seemed just so natural. And then at the end of that Key West trip, it was probably 3 weeks I was gone. She ended up flying down to Key West and then sailing back on the overnight trip back with me and a couple other friends. And I think that's when I knew that this girl was really special, and this is definitely somebody that I could go, sail around the world with.
Clouds and thunders standing in my way. I must try to figure it out anyway.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed the video. So if you love us and you want to support us, make sure to hit like below and subscribe. You can also check out our Patreon page and donate as little as $1 a week to help us continue on our journey.